If you know how blessed we are to have this library of literature, a great song is a piece of portable theology that throws us a lifeline.
Gloria Gaither looked into the camera. Her voice was shaking. Her eyes were full. And the words she said next made millions of people cry. After 6 decades of writing the hymns that millions of people sing every Sunday, the woman behind Because He Lives just told the world she's done. Not someday. Now. The news that made Bill Gaither's wife cry is the same news breaking hearts in every church, every home, and every family that ever sang her words.
I think you and I were saying, what are we going to do? It was a pretty sad time, wasn't it?
Yeah.
We were depressed.
It seems like this cycle goes around and sad times come.
A teacher from Michigan, before the hymns and the stages, Gloria Gaither was Gloria Sickle, a quiet girl from Michigan who loved books more than anything else in the world. She was born on March 4th, 1942, into a family rooted in Christian faith. Her parents raised her with a deep respect for education, literature, and the life of the mind. From an early age, Gloria showed an unusual gift for language. She wrote poetry before she could drive. She devoured novels the way other kids devoured television. She enrolled at Anderson University in Indiana, where she studied English. The campus was intimate. The professors cared about ideas, not just grades. Gloria sharpened her writing, deepened her theology, and discovered that language and faith were not separate pursuits. They were the same pursuit, approached from different angles. It was there she met a young music teacher named Bill Gaither. Bill had already started performing gospel music with his brother Danny and sister Marianne as the Bill Gaither Trio. Before that, he had worked at radio station WRFD in Worthington, Ohio, in 1955, singing in a gospel quartet. He was an English teacher by training, just like Gloria. Their shared love of words and faith drew them into longer conversations, then dinners, then a relationship neither had planned but both recognized as rare. Gloria and Bill married in 1962. What most fans don't know is that around 1964, Gloria replaced Bill's sister Marianne in the trio. She stepped into her sister-in-law's spot, a transition that could have fractured the family. But Marianne supported the change gracefully, stepping aside so the group could evolve. Gloria brought something new to the trio, a literary depth in her lyrics that transformed their sound from traditional gospel into something that resonated across denominations. Bill composed the melodies. Gloria gave them meaning with words that ached, comforted, and told the truth about what it felt like to be human and still reach for God.
It's amazing to me that, songwriting is done pretty much in solitude. You are experiencing your own.
Because He Lives by the late 1960s, the world around them was falling apart. The Vietnam War was tearing the country in half. The civil rights movement was shaking every institution. College campuses were erupting in protest, and traditional Christian values were being challenged openly from every direction. Bill was battling exhaustion from relentless touring and the constant pressure of running a ministry. And Gloria, pregnant with their 3rd child, found herself overwhelmed by a question she couldn't shake. What kind of world are we bringing this baby into? While praying together in one of their lowest moments, Gloria felt a sudden wave of peace. Not an answer to every question. Just a deep, quiet assurance that God was still holding the future. The words to Because He Lives began forming in her mind. They came from struggle, from fear, from the desperate need to believe that hope was still real. The song was recorded in 1971 and became a global anthem almost overnight. Baptists sang it. Methodists sang it. Catholics sang it. It belonged to anyone who had ever been afraid and chose faith anyway. People could feel that the song was written by someone who had genuinely been in the dark and found her way back. The success catapulted Gloria from behind-the-scenes lyricist to recognized theological voice. She didn't just write choruses after that. She told stories. Her songs carried narrative arcs, moving from darkness to light, from doubt to trust, from death to resurrection. She understood the shape of redemption, not just in Scripture, but in ordinary human life. And she translated that understanding into words that ordinary people could sing on their worst days and still feel held. She and Bill went on to co-write more than 700 songs together. 700 original compositions, each one requiring a melody, a lyric, and a truth worth singing. Most professional songwriters produce a fraction of that in an entire career. Gloria did it while raising 3 children, managing a ministry, touring the country, and writing books. In 2000, the American Society of Composers and Publishers named them Christian Songwriters of the Century. Not of the year, of the century. As the Gaither trio evolved into the Gaither Vocal Band, and the Homecoming video series became one of the most successful Christian media franchises in history, Gloria remained the steady force behind all of it. She was rarely the one holding the microphone, but her voice was everywhere, in every lyric, every prayer, every moment that moved an audience to tears. She also became a mentor to younger Christian artists, particularly women, breaking barriers quietly in a male-dominated industry. She authored dozens of devotionals, books, and spiritual journals that became lifelines for women navigating motherhood, marriage, and ministry. The losses. What most fans never saw was the grief that ran beneath the music. The Gaither story is not just a story of triumph. It is a story of loss after loss after loss, each one cutting closer to the bone than the last. And Bill and Gloria carried every one of them while still walking on stage and singing about hope. In the early 1990s, Danny Gaither, Bill's brother and the original tenor of the trio, developed severe vocal cord problems that forced him to stop touring entirely. The voice that had helped build the Gaither sound, the voice on the original recordings of Something Beautiful, He Touched Me, and Let's Just Praise the Lord, was failing. Then came the lymphoma diagnosis. Danny fought the disease for 5 brutal years. During that time, he still appeared at homecoming events whenever his body allowed it, sometimes barely able to stand, always willing to sing. One of the most emotional moments in Gaither history happened at the 1994 Praise Gathering in Indianapolis. Mark Lowry walked off the stage during The Longer I Serve Him, crossed through the audience to where Danny was sitting, and tapped him on the shoulder to sing a verse. Danny stood up. His voice was thinner than it had been in the 1960s. His body was fighting a war it was slowly losing. But he sang, and the room came apart. The audience broke down. The performers on stage broke down. Bill broke down. Everyone in that room knew what they were hearing. A dying man singing about the faithfulness of God with whatever voice he had left. It was the kind of moment that makes people believe in something bigger than themselves. Danny Gaither died on April 6, 2001, at the age of 62. He was surrounded by his wife, 3 children, 3 grandchildren, his parents, Bill and Mary Ann. The original tenor of the Bill Gaither trio was gone. The voice that had started the entire journey was silent. Then, in 2002, Bill's sister Mary Ann was diagnosed with leukemia. The youngest member of the original trio, the girl who had started singing with her brothers when she was barely a teenager, was now fighting for her life. She underwent a bone marrow transplant in 2003 and battled the disease with what Gloria described as 100 pounds of forceful determination. She didn't weigh 100 pounds, Gloria said, but it was 100 pounds of forceful determination. Marianne persevered for 16 years, refusing to let the disease define her. But on April 25, 2018, she died from complications of a pulmonary infection. In her final moments, the family gathered around her bed and sang, "Thank God for the promise of spring, and I'm a child of the King." She left the world the same way she had lived in it, surrounded by music and family. With Marianne's death, Bill became the last surviving member of the original Bill Gaither trio, the brother who sang tenor, the sister who sang contralto. Both gone. Every time Bill steps on a stage now, he carries that weight. The empty spaces where Danny's voice and Marianne's harmony used to be are never truly filled. They are simply worked around, the way a family learns to set fewer places at the table. And the losses didn't stop with family. In 2024, members of the Nylons, one of the most beloved groups in the Gaither homecoming circle, were killed in a tragic plane crash. The Nylons had performed alongside the Gaithers for years, appearing on countless homecoming stages and recordings. They were not just collaborators. They were family in every way that mattered. The crash devastated the entire Southern gospel community. For Bill and Gloria, who had already buried a brother and a sister, it was another reminder that the world they had built was not immune to the kind of loss their songs were written to address. The music they created to comfort others was now the only thing that could comfort them. The controversies. The Gaither story also includes chapters that don't make it into the tribute videos. As the homecoming brand expanded into concert tours, DVDs, cruises, merchandise, and touring packages, critics within the Christian music community questioned whether the franchise had become more business than ministry. The homecoming tours sold more tickets in 2004 than Elton John, Fleetwood Mac, or Rod Stewart. That kind of commercial success in a gospel ministry raised eyebrows. The sharpest personal criticism came over copyright enforcement. Bill Gaither was accused of pursuing legal action against churches that performed songs like "He Touched Me" and "The King Is Coming" without paying licensing fees. For many in the Christian community, this was a line that should never be crossed. The idea of a gospel songwriter taking fellow believers to court over music used in worship services struck people as fundamentally at odds with the spirit of the songs themselves. Churches eventually started paying hundreds of thousands of dollars in licensing fees. The controversy followed Bill for years. He reportedly once pointed at his home while riding in a car with a friend and said, "He touched me, paid for that house." Whether that quote reflects honest gratitude for God's provision or something less flattering depends entirely on who is telling the story. But the quote itself became part of the Gaither folklore, whispered in gospel circles long after the lawsuits were settled. Conservative fundamentalist critics went further. They accused the Gaithers of dangerous ecumenism for including Catholics, Charismatics, and mainline Protestants in their events. Bill's public statement that unity does not depend on our consensus of opinion was called heretical by some fundamentalist leaders who insisted that biblical unity required doctrinal agreement, not just shared faith in Christ. Gloria drew her own criticism when she publicly recommended writings by Sue Monk Kidd and Richard Rohr in the Gaither Homecoming magazine. Both authors are associated with contemplative and mystical spirituality that conservative evangelicals consider outside orthodox boundaries. For some critics, these recommendations were evidence that Gloria had drifted from the theology her own songs proclaimed. In 1994, the same year Danny was fighting lymphoma, Gaither vocal band member Mike English left the group abruptly amid a public extramarital affair scandal. It was one of the biggest controversies in Southern gospel at the time. English had been one of the most popular members of the group, and his departure created intense media pressure on the Gaither organization. Bill handled the situation quietly, refusing to publicly condemn English, while also acknowledging the pain the situation had caused. Not everyone thought quiet was the right approach. And in their hometown of Alexandria, Indiana, former warehouse employees described the Gaithers as difficult employers. Local resentment grew when a competing recording studio in the small town was reportedly pushed out of business by the Gaither operation's growth. Gloria never responded to any of it publicly. The letters kept arriving. The testimonies kept coming. Families who found Christ through the homecoming tapes. Widows who played the videos every night because the music made them feel less alone. The critics saw a brand. The audience saw a lifeline. And Gloria kept writing, knowing the difference between the two. Behind the music. Those closest to Gloria knew that her first ministry was always her family. She and Bill raised 3 children. Suzanne, the eldest, managed Gaither family resources and co-wrote songs with her mother, carrying the family's vision into the next generation with both business skill and spiritual depth. Amy, a poet, actress, and teacher, inherited Gloria's love for language. She once described her upbringing in a way that reveals exactly what kind of household Gloria built. Mom didn't just want us to be good Christians. She wanted us to be thinkers, to ask questions, to know why we believed what we believed. Benjamin, the youngest, followed his father into music production, co-founding Liveborn Media, and working on many homecoming projects. His music leaned more contemporary, but the foundation was identical: truth, family, and faith. All 3 described their mother the same way: patient, present, intentional. She wrote songs late at night after the kids were asleep. She turned ordinary moments into lessons. Even when ministry demands overwhelmed the household, Gloria made sure her children never felt second to the stage. She and Bill navigated over 6 decades of marriage together, not just as partners in music, but as genuine soulmates, raising 3 children on the road, managing a sprawling ministry, burying a brother and a sister, weathering public criticism, and shouldering the weight of public expectations, all took their toll. But through every season, Gloria remained the grounding force. In 2023, the Gaither vocal band did something nobody expected. They released a secular album called Love Songs. For a gospel act that had spent decades in church sanctuaries, it was a surprising departure. Some fans saw it as a natural expansion. Others saw it as a sign that the brand had drifted from its roots. Either way, it signaled that the Gaither organization was evolving, even as its founders were slowing down. The news that made her cry in a recent video released by the Gaither music group, Gloria appeared on screen looking visibly emotional. The setting was simple. No stage, no band, no production. Just Gloria, a camera, and 6 decades of gratitude pressing against her chest. She thanked fans for years of love, prayers, and unwavering support. She spoke about the songs, about the people who had sung them in moments she would never know about. And then, with her voice trembling and her eyes filling, she said the words nobody was prepared for. There comes a time when you feel a gentle tug on your heart, a sense that God is calling you to a quieter season. At 82 years old, the woman who had written words that carried millions through the darkest moments of their lives was stepping back from public life. Bill addressed the decision with a tenderness that made fans cry all over again. Gloria has given so much for over 60 years, he said. She's poured herself into the church, into our family, and into the world through her words. I think it's time she rests, holds her grandkids, walks in the garden, and listens instead of always speaking. She has earned that. Their grandchildren shared tributes on social media. Many described Nana as their favorite storyteller, the one who always had a journal in her lap and a parable tucked inside every conversation. One grandchild wrote that she never gave lectures. She gave stories. And the stories always had God hidden somewhere inside them, waiting for you to find Him. A legacy in lyrics. Social media erupted with tributes. One woman wrote that Gloria's songs carried her through cancer treatments when nothing else could reach her. A man shared that his mother had played "Because He Lives at Every Family Birthday" for 30 years. His mother was gone now, but every time he heard the opening notes, she was right there beside him again. Churches across the world held special services in her honor. Radio stations dedicated hour-long tributes. Fans created compilation videos sharing personal stories of how her songs had changed their lives, saved their marriages, and given them the courage to keep going. What struck people most was how personal the connection felt. Gloria never chased fame. She never performed for the spotlight. But her authenticity made millions feel they knew her. She was the woman who wrote the exact lyric that matched your heartache on the exact night you needed it. In nursing homes across America, her hymns are still played every day. In prison chapels, her words echo off concrete walls. In quiet living rooms, her songs live on in worn CDs, and the memories of families who sang together when singing was the only thing holding them together. Gloria Gaither hasn't said, "This is the end." She's said, "It's time to listen more than speak, to rest more than strive." Even her goodbye is a lesson. Even her silence is ministry. Even the way she steps back from the stage tells you everything about the kind of woman she has always been. Not someone who needs the microphone, someone who earned it, and someone graceful enough to set it down. The news that made Bill Gaither's wife cry is the same news making millions of fans cry too. Not because she's leaving, but because what she built through loss, through scandal, through 60 years of showing up, was so honest that letting go feels like losing something sacred. What is your favorite Gloria Gaither song? Let us know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.